So again, we have another equation with just cos. So that'll be straightforward. We want to get cos by itself and then use our pi plate to solve. This question is one that you would find on a calculator part of a quiz test or exam. Because when we combine our like terms, for example, by subtracting cos x on both sides and adding 4 to both sides, I will get negative 2 equals 3 cos x dividing by 3 gives me cos x equals negative 2/3, which is not on our pi plate. So when I go to get my reference angle, first of all, I recognize that cos is negative, so according to the cast rule, we would be looking in quadrant 2 or quadrant 3. If I drew a triangle in quadrant 2, I would know that the adjacent side is 2, the hypotenuse is 3, and this would be my reference angle. So if I wanted to solve for my reference angle, and I guess I should use an x with a little r because our original angle is an x, cos of our reference angle is 2/3. Now our question is in radians, so we make sure that our calculator mode is in radians. And then we can do cos inverse of 2 divided by 3. And we get a reference angle of 0.841. So now to find what angle that would be in quadrant 2, we could go pi minus our reference angle. Let's say to the nearest hundredth, approximation signs, 2.30, and pi plus my reference angle, 3.98. Now that's solving again between 0 and 2 pi. Now I'm going to look at the domain that they're asking for. They're asking for from negative 2 pi, from negative pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2. So if we think of what that means they're looking from 0 to negative pi over 2 in the negative direction. And they're looking from 0 to 3 pi over 2 in the positive direction. Now, since we know that our answers were here in quadrant 2 and here in quadrant 3, the answers that we found between 0 and 2 pi are both the correct answers. There is no answer in quadrant 4, so that little negative thing that they asked for wasn't necessary or didn't affect our answer at all. Then write the general solution. So our general solution we're in radians, add 2k pi to each one. Anybody need me to go back? Everybody? Yes. So for part B, now we've got a cosecant equation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get cosecant by itself by dividing both sides by root 2. And then since I know cosecant and sine are reciprocals, if cosecant is equal to negative 5 over root 2, then sine is equal to negative 2 over root 5. Again, I'm going to solve it in the first time around, between 0 and 360 degrees, because the question's asking in degrees. That's not on my pi plate, so it's a calculator question. Yes? Oh, why did the roots change? That is a very good question. That's what happens when your head shadows the numbers before and you can't see them. So it should be root 2 over 5. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to solve it between 0 and 360 degrees like we've done before. Sine is negative, so according to our cast rule, we're looking in quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. If I would draw a picture of one of those, a triangle in quadrant 3 with my reference angle right there, I know sine is opposite. That side will be root 2, this side will be 5. And if I want to find my reference angle, I'm again using the positive values because I'm using an actual triangle and its actual lengths. Change my calculator now to degrees because this question's in degrees. Sine inverse of square root of 2 and I get a reference angle of 16. And it is to the nearest degree, 16.4 degrees, so that to the nearest degree would be 16 degrees. In quadrant 3, you do one, make sure you remember the degree sign. You forget a degree sign once, and it's a half-mark deduction on the final exam. Even if you forget it once in the equation, even if it's in your work in the reference angle off to the side. So be very careful with that. So in quadrant 3, it would be 180 plus 16 degrees, 196. In quadrant 4, it would be 360 minus 16 degrees, which would be 344 degrees. Now that would be solving it from 0 to 360. Okay? And I'm going to use those values when I do my general solution. But now this question is asking from negative 180 to 180. So if I think about my unit circle, negative 180 to 180 means going from 0 to 180 in the negative direction and 0 to 180 in the positive direction. Since my answers are in quadrant 3 and 4, I'm really looking for the two negative answers. So I have to figure out what is coterminal with 196 if I was going in the negative direction. Okay? And this is the way I would figure it out. I know my reference angle is 16 degrees. So if I was figuring out this angle, I would just take 180 minus 16 and get 164 degrees, and it would be negative. And if I was finding the one in quadrant 4, it would just be negative 16 degrees. You could also find both of these by taking the 196 and subtracting 360, or taking the 344 and subtracting 360, because that's how you would be coterminal and find those negative angles as well. Now for the general solution, I prefer to use the angles that we found in our first time around. So that's 196 degrees and 344 degrees, and add 360 degrees times k. Where k is any integer. So these questions are good because they get us to practice thinking about our domains. They practice us solving between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi. And they practice the general solution. So they sort of do a bunch of stuff. For your test on Thursday, the general solution isn't on there. Okay? But all of the solving stuff that you do prior to this very last step is, so that's why I want to do these questions now, because they're almost identical on your test. Okay? Questions for this one are 6 and 7.